Fatty Arbuckle. It was the scandal that rocked Hollywood's golden age before it had even fully begun. In September of 1921, Roscoe Fatty Arbuckle, one of the biggest silent film stars of the era, attended a lavish party at the St. Francis Hotel in San Francisco. By the end of that night, actress Virginia Rappe was left gravely ill, and within days, she was gone. The accusations that followed were shocking. Arbuckle was accused of assaulting and ultimately causing Rappe's demise. The media pounced, turning the case into a frenzy of salacious headlines and damning speculation. Arbuckle, once beloved for his comedic genius, was now painted as a monster. The trials that followed dragged on for months, with the first two ending in hung juries. It wasn't until April of 1922 that he was finally acquitted, with the jury even issuing a formal apology, declaring that Arbuckle had suffered a grave injustice. But the damage was done. Hollywood, fearing backlash, effectively blacklisted him, and the scandal led to stricter moral guidelines in the industry. Arbuckle's career never recovered, serving as an early example of how swiftly Hollywood could turn on its own. Even today, debate lingers. Was he a victim of a ruthless media machine, or was there more to the story than the courts ever revealed? Lana Turner and Johnny Stompanato. It was the scandal that had all of Hollywood whispering. On the night of April 4th, 1958, inside Lana Turner's Beverly Hills home, a confrontation turned deadly. Johnny Stompanato, a known mob enforcer with ties to the infamous Mickey Cohen, had been physically violent toward Turner for months. That night, the abuse escalated. Turner's teenage daughter, Cheryl Crane, just 14 years old, grabbed a knife from the kitchen and, in a moment of sheer panic, plunged it into Stompanato's stomach. He collapsed almost instantly, and by the time paramedics arrived, it was too late. The death was ruled justifiable homicide, self-defense against a man who had terrorized their home. But while Cheryl was legally cleared, the court of public opinion was far less forgiving. Rumors swirled. Some whispered that it was Lana herself who had wielded the knife, and Cheryl had taken the fall to protect her mother's career. Others speculated that the mob would seek revenge. Turner, already a Hollywood legend, now found herself at the center of a real-life noir film, one filled with violence, scandal, and suspicion. In the years that followed, she remained a star, but the shadow of that night never fully left her. Decades later, Cheryl maintained that she had acted in self-defense, insisting she had no regrets about stopping a dangerous man. But even now, some still wonder, was there more to the story than what was told? Thomas Ince. It was supposed to be a lavish weekend of luxury and entertainment aboard William Randolph Hearst's private yacht. But by the time the trip ended, one of Hollywood's most influential filmmakers was dead, and the official story just didn't add up. In November of 1924, Thomas Ince, a pioneer of early cinema, joined Hearst and a glittering guest list that included actress Marion Davies and Charlie Chaplin for a pleasure cruise along the California coast. But what should have been an elite gathering turned into a scandal that still fuels speculation to this day. The official report claimed that Ince suffered a fatal heart attack after disembarking from the yacht. However, whispers of a deadly mistake spread quickly. Rumors suggested that Hearst, in a jealous rage, had fired a gun at Chaplin, believing the comedian was having an affair with Davies. Instead, the bullet allegedly struck Ince, who later succumbed to his injuries. The story was only made murkier by conflicting reports. Some claimed Ince was rushed off the yacht under secrecy, while others insisted he was never even shot at all. The rushed cremation of his body only deepened suspicions. No autopsy was performed, and no official investigation took place, leading many to believe a cover-up had been orchestrated by Hearst's vast media empire. Over the years, various accounts have surfaced, some from guests who were aboard that fateful trip, but no definitive answers have ever emerged. Nearly a century later, the mystery of Thomas Ince's death remains one of Hollywood's most chilling, unsolved scandals. Franchot Tone. Franchot Tone never saw it coming. One moment, he was the suave, Oscar-nominated actor known for his refined charm. The next, he was lying unconscious, his face shattered, his body broken. His attacker, Tom Neal, a fellow actor who had once been a promising leading man until his violent temper took center stage. The two men were locked in a bitter battle for the affections of Barbara Payton, a blonde bombshell whose career was as turbulent as her love life. But this wasn't just a lover's quarrel. This was a brutal, career-ending scandal. Neal didn't just throw a punch, he beat Tone so savagely that the actor suffered a broken nose, a concussion, and was left in a coma for hours. When he finally woke up in a hospital bed, his Hollywood standing had already begun to crumble. The press had a field day painting Tone as the tragic victim, Neal as the violent brute, and Payton as the reckless femme fatale who had played them both. Studios wanted nothing to do with the mess. Neal, already struggling to maintain his career, was effectively blacklisted. Payton, once poised for stardom, became tabloid fodder. And Tone? Though he tried to recover, the damage was done. He spiraled into alcoholism, his once promising career reduced to a shadow of what it had been. Decades later, Hollywood still remembers the scandal, but not in the way any of them would have wanted. Thomas Gomez. Thomas Gomez had a face made for villains. His heavy brows and deep-set eyes made him a natural for playing gangsters and sinister figures, but off-screen, his demons were just as menacing. Gomez's struggles with alcoholism weren't just whispered rumors, they were front-page news. He was arrested multiple times for public drunkenness, often found stumbling out of Hollywood bars in the early morning hours. One night, things took a darker turn. A heated argument inside a smoky bar erupted into a full-blown brawl. Glass shattered, fists flew, and by the time the police arrived, Gomez was bloodied and barely conscious. The altercation nearly cost him everything. Studio executives were ready to blacklist him, fearing his unpredictable behavior would become a liability. Yet somehow he managed to claw his way back. Despite his legal troubles, he delivered a career-defining performance in Ride the Pink Horse, earning an Oscar nomination. The industry forgave, the public forgot, and Gomez continued to work. But behind the scenes, the same struggles followed him. He once told an interviewer, "I am not a villain, I am a man who has been through a lot." A rare glimpse into the turmoil beneath his gruff exterior. Hollywood was willing to overlook his indiscretions as long as he delivered on screen. And he did, right up until the end. But the question remains, how much of his career was talent, and how much was the industry turning a blind eye to the chaos he left in his wake? Joan Bennett. It started with jealousy, but it ended with gunfire. Joan Bennett was one of Hollywood's most glamorous leading ladies, but off-screen, her life took a turn straight out of a noir film. Her husband, Walter Wanger, a powerful producer, became convinced she was having an affair with her agent, Jennings Lang. One evening, he followed them to a parking lot, pulled out a pistol, and shot Lang in broad daylight. The scandal exploded across headlines, turning Bennett's once flourishing career into collateral damage. Wanger claimed he acted in a moment of passion, and despite shooting Lang in the groin, he served only a few months behind bars. But for Bennett, the fallout was far worse. Studios distanced themselves, and leading roles vanished overnight. Years later, she admitted that even though she stood by Wanger, Hollywood never forgave her. The irony? There was never any proof she and Lang were anything more than colleagues. One jealous impulse cost her everything. Claude Rains. Claude Rains was a master of transformation on screen, but behind closed doors, his charm faded into something far more sinister. His third wife, Frances Proper, later described him as controlling and violent, alleging that their marriage was a cycle of fear and manipulation. In a court deposition, she claimed, he was a charming man on screen, but at home, he was a monster. And she wasn't the only one. Multiple wives accused Rains of physical abuse, with some accounts suggesting that his temper could erupt over the smallest slight. Yet, despite these allegations, Hollywood turned a blind eye. The industry was more invested in preserving his legacy than exposing the truth. His legal battles were quietly settled, his reputation carefully maintained. Even today, many fans remain unaware of the darkness that lurked beneath his polished exterior. With recent retrospectives celebrating his work, some have begun to question whether his legacy should be reevaluated in light of these disturbing claims. Was Raines just another example of Hollywood's long history of protecting its own, no matter the cost? Charlie Chaplin. Charlie Chaplin was a legend of silent cinema, a man who made the world laugh, until scandal nearly destroyed him. In the early 1940s, actress Joan Barry accused Chaplin of fathering her child, triggering a sensational paternity trial. The courtroom drama played out in headlines, with Chaplin's reputation on the line. Then came the twist. Blood tests proved he wasn't the father. But in a shocking legal move, the court still ordered him to pay child support. The scandal fed into growing suspicions about Chaplin's alleged communist sympathies, making him a prime target for the FBI and the House Un-American Activities Committee. By 1952, the pressure became unbearable. When Chaplin left the United States for a European film premiere, the government revoked his re-entry permit, effectively exiling him. For 20 years, he remained an outcast from the country where he had built his career. But time has a way of rewriting history. In 1972, Hollywood finally welcomed him back, awarding him an honorary Oscar. As he stood on stage, the audience erupted in a 12-minute standing ovation, the longest in Academy Awards history. It was a moment of redemption, but the scars of his exile never fully faded. Barbara Lamar. Barbara Lamar didn't just live fast, she burned through life like a shooting star, dazzling and doomed in equal measure. Dubbed the girl who was too beautiful, she was Hollywood's ultimate paradox, adored by audiences yet consumed by excess. She partied like there was no tomorrow, and for her, there almost wasn't. Arrested multiple times for public intoxication and substance possession, she became a tabloid fixture, her glamorous image unraveling in real time. One infamous night, police had to carry her out of a nightclub, too intoxicated to stand, as flashing cameras immortalized her downfall. Behind the scenes, her health was deteriorating rapidly. Years of reckless indulgence had taken their toll, and by the time she sought medical help, it was too late. She passed away at only 29, her body ravaged by tuberculosis and addiction. In her final days, she reportedly wrote to a friend, "I was living life too fast, and it caught up with me." A tragic confession from a woman who had it all until it all had her. Tom Neal. Tom Neal had the looks of a leading man and the talent to match, but behind the scenes, his life was a storm of violence and jealousy. His temper was infamous, most notably when he brutally beat fellow actor Franchot Tone over their shared love interest, actress Barbara Payton. That fight left Tone hospitalized with a shattered cheekbone and concussion, but it was just a preview of the destruction Neal would bring into his own life. Years later, his rage would turn deadly. In a shocking turn, Neal shot and unalived his third wife, Gail Bennett, in what he claimed was a tragic accident. He insisted he had been cleaning his firearm when it discharged, but investigators weren't convinced. The evidence pointed to something far more sinister. Bennett had been shot in the back of the head. Neal's past violent outbursts made his defense even harder to believe. The jury ultimately convicted him of manslaughter, sentencing him to a decade behind bars. His once promising Hollywood career was over, replaced by the grim reality of a prison cell. When he was finally released, there were no red carpets waiting for him, only obscurity and the weight of his own past. George Raft. George Raft wasn't just playing gangsters on screen, he was rubbing elbows with them in real life. His friendships with notorious figures like Bugsy Siegel and Meyer Lansky weren't just casual acquaintances. Raft was often seen at high-stakes gambling dens and exclusive nightclubs, places where the mob conducted business behind closed doors. Rumors swirled that he didn't just enjoy their company, he actively helped them. Allegedly, Raft once provided Siegel with a safe hideout when law enforcement was closing in, using his Hollywood connections to keep the authorities off his trail. Though he was never formally charged, his name kept surfacing in investigations. Studio executives grew uneasy, and as Hollywood distanced itself from organized crime, Raft's career took a nosedive. He reportedly turned down roles that could have saved his stardom, all because they clashed with his real-life underworld ties. By the time he realized the damage, it was too late. His once glittering career was permanently tarnished by the company he kept. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and comment. Also, consider subscribing and hitting the notification bell to get notified of our newest videos. Thanks for watching.